I'm always happy to talk about sustainability and sustainability in the context of this week's theme of creative resilience. So I'm going to talk about designing for an uncertain future. So you got an introduction there, but I want to specifically talk about some of the things I'm doing around sustainability that are a core part of the design work we're doing. So she mentioned sustainability and stuff, and I'm also a real estate agent. But I have been recently working with NAR, that's the National Association of Realtors, that's out of the US, as a green designate and a tutor to bring the awareness around green building and sustainability to real estate agents in Jamaica. It's a large cohort. It's one of the largest professional groups. So I'm working with them as well to bring sustainability to that touch point. It's one of the first touch points for many people in engaging with the built sector. I'm also working with a colleague in establishing Jamaica's Green Building Council. This is a project we've been working on for maybe about 20 years, but it is finally becoming very real. I'm very excited about that. And also working with IFC World Bank Standard for EDGE Green Building standards. So I'm really working hard at bringing green building and sustainability standards to our built environment in Jamaica. So let's talk about sustainability. What is sustainability? What does it mean? Why do we care? And then how does sustainability relate to this theme about resilience? So first of all, and very simply, I teach sustainability all the time. So I want to just show you my simple Venn diagram. So sustainability really is about a balance between environment, the society, and the economy. But because I'm Heather Pinnock with a P, I now use my 3 Ps. So that's people, planet, and profit. That's to make it easy and to help you to remember. You'll also notice that the Venn diagram, which is the intersection of people, planet, and profit, right at the middle there is where you get sustainability. That's also the logo for my company. So you'll see the Venn diagram is my logo. So it's really the core of everything I do. And the main definition of sustainability is meeting the present needs without compromising the needs of the future. It means not being greedy. You know, there was that Wolf of Wall Street movie that said greed is good. Greed is not good. We don't need to use more than we need to. So the idea of sustainability is that you must fulfill your needs today. It's not suggesting that you suffer today, but that you fulfill your needs without taking more than you need to, because who knows what's going to happen in the future. We can see already that in my lifetime, things that I thought were normal and standard have changed completely. The world continues to change. And I don't mean this only in terms of the built environment. I mean it in terms of your own lives when you think about what do I need to do today to make sure that I am still healthy in the future. That's the reason why we work out. That's the reason why we eat healthy. So it's also very applicable in the built environment and in the real estate development sector. So we want to meet what we're doing today, fulfill what we need today, but not compromise the ability of fantastic things being able to happen in the future. And then let's talk about resilience, which is the theme of this week. Resilience is the capacity to anticipate what's going to happen. So there are quite a few people who do things like studying future forecasting and stuff like that. I see my friend Bianca who does that kind of work. And then to adapt to this changing reality, and also not only to adapt and get by. We don't wish to get by. The idea is to understand, adapt, and thrive in this uncertain future. Because if you are informed, if we make good decisions, if we get good advice, then we can make better decisions about how we go forward into the future, the decisions we make, the things we decide to build. And I as my little bio said, I've been in development and construction for a long time, and one of the main things I like to share is when you pour that concrete, there's a good chance it's going to stay there for at least 60 years, if not more. So please think long and hard before you pour it. The work that happens before the pour is so important because it's going to stay there for 60 to 100 years. So together, sustainability, that's the key work that I do, and resilience, which is the theme of this week, together they help us to design for an unpredictable future. Okay, so let's talk about Jamaica and what what are some of our sustainability concerns and needs here in Jamaica. This picture is by my colleague, Gordon Langford, and it is one of my favorite pictures to use when talking about our Jamaican context, because in this one picture, you see a highway, a hotel, a housing scheme, and some undeveloped land, and then and then the sea. And it is a very, very good snapshot of life in Jamaica and life in the Caribbean and life in small island developing states. In small island developing states, about 60%, about 70% of people live within 1 mile of the coast. About 60% of people live at or near sea level, which means our risks for the effects of climate change are just phenomenal. We are among the most vulnerable people in the entire globe to the effects of climate change. In our Jamaican context, we have our geographic vulnerability, which looks at climate change, things like hurricanes, sea level rise, and heat stress, some stuff that has been discussed already. We also have a geographic location that exposes us to seismic activity. Then, on top of our geographic location and how we use the space that we have, there's also the consideration for economic structure. We are a small island developing state, which limits some of the things that we can do, but that does not mean that we can't thrive nonetheless. But some of our key sectors, such as tourism and agriculture, are very sensitive to global shifts, to our geography, and to our changing world. And so we need to think about those and include those in our planning going forward. But another thing in Jamaica is that we have a very strong and unique culture. And this includes looking at creativity. Here we are having a design week that is very much focused entirely on being creative in how we design and how we look to that future, and how the people who design and shape our world can think more about how we plan for this unpredictable future. And how we have strong communities and social resilience. So our future in Jamaica, based on design, must blend a look at our tradition, our creativity, and our long-term resilience. So let's talk about the three Ps: people, planet, and profit. I'm going to start with profit. We're going to design resilience for profit. So in our designing of the built world, in our designing of our real estate sectors, profit is important. So I don't want to say that in considering development, we should keep every single tree and we should not build anything, and never. So I'm very much in support of development, but development must give consideration to the balance of people, planet, and profit. So in the case of profit, we want to consider various ways in which we can diversify our income streams. Our creative industries have been doing very well. Some of our digital industries and digital opportunities have also been doing very well. And then there's also the option, of course, of looking at green entrepreneurship. And that's how we build sustainability into every factor of our lives and, of course, into our built world. It's important to consider also the circular economy. There's a consideration, there is a way we have operated where we think that we can throw things away. There is no away. Everything you throw away goes somewhere and stays there, or goes somewhere else. So we need to, as we move into our unpredictable future, give more consideration to waste. And what is really waste? Because there are many things that we waste that could be used in other ways, that could be taken apart in other ways. Part of my green training was in Germany, and it was fascinating to me. They have no concept of garbage. Every single thing is taken apart and used for its pieces. And that is really where we must get to, because we cannot throw things away. Even if you go to our dumps or landfills, let me use that language, or landfills, there are things there that are certainly very valuable. We could take apart a number of things, but focusing on construction, even construction materials can be separated and used in various ways to go forward. When I watch international housing shows, I'm always amused when they take a sledgehammer to like a cabinet. We would never do that. You take out that cabinet and somebody is going to use it here, right? We don't waste those things, right? When I was renovating my house, I took out a window. Before I put down the window, somebody said, "Can I have that window?" So there are some elements of our economy that makes those kinds of things kind of how we do. But I want us to keep in mind that that's an important way of going forward. We can't take useful things and throw them away. We have to find ways, and there are business opportunities in there to find things that people aren't using or are getting rid of that can be used in other ways, and support building at various levels. Also, we want to, in looking at the profit element, look at how we strengthen local supply chains and reduce reliance on imports, which is looking at how our local companies start doing better, do well, and it is a very important part of how Jamaica operates. You see some of our sponsors, some of our speakers are some of the strong Jamaican companies that are doing well and showing us that we can do quite a bit in Jamaica as a part of that. And overall, that design thinking, and that's how we think about, how we strategically plan what we do, is a core part of how we need to adapt our businesses in terms of design, in terms of looking to the future. And that is key in how we continue to make profit. Then I want to talk about planet. Planet is our care for the environment, our care for this land that we have been given. We want to look very much at green building practices. In Jamaica, I find people think that when you say green building, it means putting a solar panel on the roof. That is actually the peak. There's a pyramid that I teach when I talk about when I teach sustainable energy. And actually the most important thing in energy is conservation. That is turning it off when you're not using it. In the use of energy, that is far more important than putting solar on the roof. So the ability to only use power energy when you need to is the baseline and the most important thing in energy. The next level is still not solar. The next level is when you use energy, you use that energy efficiently. So at that point now, when you simply must use energy, that energy must be used in inverters. It must be used in the most efficient way possible. And then when we have streamlined that, so we're only using what we need to, and when we are using it, we're using it efficiently. At that point, we apply alternative power sources. Now, alternative power sources are very important, but some of the simpler things don't cost anything or are really quite affordable, and they're simply turning off lights and things when you're not in the room. That's why you're seeing a number of hotels and on cruise ships, when you open the door, everything goes off, because they know it's reflected in their numbers, and conservation is the baseline. And the same is true of water. The conservation of anything is the baseline of handling it well. And so, I didn't go to my urban resilience. I think Peter touched on urban resilience quite a bit, but one of the things we do need to think about in our design going forward is that our experience in our built environment is not as it was. With heat stress, the world is hotter, we're spending more time indoors. In North America, people spend about 80% of their lives indoors. We're not at that figure in Jamaica. We're probably more about 50, 60% of our life indoors, but we're going to get there. It's getting hotter and hotter. When you spend more time indoors, that means you're using more lighting. It's daytime and we're in here with AC and lights, right? So we need to find ways to not do that, or to minimize how we do that. And if we're doing it, do it as efficiently as possible. But other things to consider are things like floods and droughts. I think Peter touched on that pretty well. I want to talk just briefly about fire. One of the results of heat stress is more fires. We've seen an increase in fires. We have seen dangerous fires in our urban areas, close to our urban centers. And these are some of the results of our unpredictable future that we're seeing, and we need to start planning for it. I have had clients who are designing villas on the beach. Sounds like the wonderful life. They're unable to get insurance. I have clients who are building a nice house at the top of the hill, but it's in a fire zone. Difficult to get insurance. So there are quite a few things in our built environment that make us really have to take a step back and think about how we're doing things, how we're planning for things, how these things are going to happen and how they're going to work. So always keep that in mind. And of course, we have the delightful advantage of living here in Jamaica, a beautiful country with wonderful breezes, with good amount of sunshine and some rain, even though it's being reduced. And so we can also design and plan for other environment that we have, and designing things that are matched with our environment instead of standing out against it. So we can harmonize with our environment as a core part. And then finally, in my people, planet, and profit, I want to talk about people. It's an important part of design and of considering what we do. And that is society, how society uses the spaces we live, work, and play, and how the decisions that we as builders and designers make impact the people who are going to live, work, and play in the spaces that we make. So you want to have not just consultation because it's mandated by the design process, but some amount of consultation to understand what people want, what are the experiences of space, so that you don't build in places called Big Pond, like places like Big Pond, things like Lakehurst, so that their decisions are made and informed by the people who have experienced them. And this is not only about Big Ponds, it's also people say, oh, fire burn over there floods all the time, right there, breakaway. So there's a lot to be learned from having conversations with communities. Then there's also the notion of design versus user experience. We've all seen the situation where you design a corner with a nice sidewalk, but people cut straight through, cut across. So as much as we design, and as a trained designer, it's something I think about, this is how I would like it, but then the reality when it's built is that's not how people use it. So understanding how people use space that we intend to build and develop is such an important part of doing that. And I must talk about equity and inclusion. Another important thing to consider is inclusion. If you design a space that a little girl cannot navigate, then you've not designed a good space. We live in a world that's designed for able-bodied adult men. There are many things that it's difficult to step up, push, pull, climb over, because the world was designed, many of our architects in the past, or builders in the past, were all men. And so they're designed for what they were accustomed to. I'm glad to see some female contractors up in here. And I'm glad that I have women running large real estate development companies, because it is important to be conscious of those things. Can people get in? I have a client right now who's in a wheelchair, and I have gone to multiple apartment blocks that probably got approvals, and the wheelchair cannot make it all the way from the parking lot to the unit. And they got approval. And if other people cannot use your space, if only able-bodied men can use your space, use your facility, operate your equipment, then it is not including everyone. And that is a core part. That's a whole other talk that I could have, though, about inclusivity. I won't get into that today. But it is a part of designing. We have to consider everyone who will use a space, not only strong, able-bodied people who will use a space. And then Jamaica, of course, is a unique and very special place, and we must honor our culture, our history, the things that have happened in our past, some of which are not good, and the things that we aspire to in our future, and include those as a core part of how we do development and how we do development planning. And finally, that we consider spaces to foster this creativity and our adaptation to our new normal. And so I end very quickly with this house. This house is an example. Peter stole a little bit of my thunder, but I usually show lots of new fancy buildings. I enjoy new buildings. I build new buildings. I sell new buildings. It's great stuff. But one of the things I always keep in mind, especially when I'm balancing people, planet, and profit, is looking at our traditional designs. There are many things about our traditional designs that have great value. I'm going to start with Peter's. This house is lifted a little bit above the ground. It's possible that the land floods, and so they're already prepared. They're a little bit up. The veranda is there. Veranda prevents the sun from shining on the wall of the room that you're in, so it reduces that heat. It has a steep roof. It has a cistern over the side. There are many things about these old houses that we have kind of given up, and we want new glass and steel. But these houses teach us many lessons about how to live with our climate, how to live with our environment, and how to design for our uncertain future. So let's not throw away the lessons that are available to us there. And I end with a quote: we do the best we can until we know better. And when we know better, we do better. Thank you.